Well, it's a pleasure for me to be here today, and thanks for taking time out to come learn a little bit about what's going on in the security world today. It is an industry that is a fascinating industry, and it's also an industry that is changing very rapidly. I'm going to spend some time talking to you today about the changes that have occurred in the security industry over the past several years, and also really explaining to you what security is and how it's impacting the world. If you follow the news of late, it's also an area that is getting high visibility about some of the things that are taking place around the world. Most recently about the government on business attacks, China onto U.S. businesses and other businesses around the world, hacking into the different devices that are there. And what I'm going to cover for you today is really how this industry has evolved and why it's evolving, and then what role I think there is for you to play in that and what opportunities exist. And it's a very fascinating industry. As Dean said, I graduated Poly in December of '76, and I started my career with a company called IBM, which was a great opportunity for me. The training and the grounding that I got from IBM certainly set the stage for me for the rest of my career. I spent just a little bit under 8 years with IBM, and then left IBM in late '83 to join a company called WordStar in the Silicon Valley. And my primary reason for leaving IBM is I'm a West Coast person, born and raised in Northern California, and really did not want to live on the East Coast, and specifically White Plains, New York. And I was really fortunate at that point because Silicon Valley really started taking off. A lot of the early stage companies were getting funding from venture capitalists. You saw a lot of innovation coming into the marketplace. And really, at the end of the day, a lot of what was taking place was taking the higher end mainframe technologies and bringing them downscale to small businesses and to individuals. And of course, you had Apple Computer starting in the marketplace. In fact, WordStar was the first word processing application for the PC, and it started out on the Apple I. We went to the Apple IIe, the Mac, and every platform thereafter. And then, of course, continued into the PC side when IBM launched their PC product in the early '80s, and then we expanded from there. After WordStar, I went to a venture capital firm called Sequoia Capital, which was one of the larger firms in Silicon Valley. Legend Don Valentine was the founder of that venture firm. And for one of his portfolio companies, that was called DocuPro, which was involved in the electronic publishing marketplace. And that one actually went pretty well. We ended up selling the business, and then we started a small little company that we ended up taking public in September of '92. And as CEO of that company, it was quite an interesting experience. Throughout, my family likes to say from age 10 on, I knew I was going to be in business, and that's probably true. Because I really had a fascination about how you bring things to market and why people do what they do. And one of the things that I learned, interestingly enough, right here at Cal Poly, was why businesses really succeed. And there's a lot of complex formulas that people talk about and a lot of things that they do on research, but at the end of the day, there was a professor here called Owen Savacious, and I shared this story at lunch, who really nailed it down to me in a way that I could understand it, because I'm not really that smart of a person. What I do a pretty good job of is taking the complex and bringing it down into the simple so that I can understand it and then help others do it. And he did that very well. Our first week in class, he started us off with a debate. Imagine 35 students in a class debating why we have dishwashing soap in the world today. What is the need? Why do we have this? And you can imagine 35 students debating this for 3 sessions all week long the first time. And at the end of the Friday session, when we were all pounding our heads because we never had the right answer, everything we suggested was wrong, it wasn't the reason, he enlightened us. The reason we had it is because people wanted it. And once you transfer a want into a need, you have a business. And so when you think about that core aspect of that and you start translating that into any business environment that you're looking into, it really resonates with you what the foundation that you're building is. When we had Select Tech, we knew that people needed information. and that information would become a need, not just a want. And that was the core part of the business that turned out to be pretty successful for us. After we sold that business, you know, I ran into a friend of mine who was at this company called then Network Associates. And he was the president of the company. He was asking me to help him start up some businesses inside there. And so I joined him, helped him get a couple things going, and 14 years later, I'm still here at McAfee. And I'm here because this industry has changed so much and it's evolved so quickly that you really don't realize that 14 years has almost gone by. It's been interesting to see how the different areas of security have evolved into the marketplace and the different technologies that have come into this business, from the things that we're doing today that seem so simple and natural to the very complex at the high end. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to demonstrate my technical capability here from switching from this screen to the PowerPoint. And we're good to go. How about that, huh? So, at McAfee, in the early days, we really started out as an antivirus company. And the viruses of the early days were really created by what we used to kid around as 16-year-old kids who couldn't get a date on Friday night because they were really upset at Bill Gates for creating an operating system that didn't do everything they wanted to do in the way they wanted to do it. So it was great fun to take shots at these PCs, these early day PCs with viruses that they could cause the systems to come down and create problems. And in the early days, viruses took a long time to have any sort of major impact. In fact, in '97, there was a total of 17,000 pieces of malware known around the industry. And it would take months for a piece of malware to spread around the world. In fact, we used to mail out updates of viruses on floppy disks every 3 months. So the nature of the virus world was just in the early stages, and it was really about how do you cause a PC to have a problem more than about any of the things that are happening today, which we'll talk about in a little bit, which really are built around financial and intellectual property gains for the PC. Along with the growth of the different types of attacks has been the expansion of digital devices, what we call IP-enabled devices. We were having a conversation on the way down, and someone made the comment that, gee, I wonder what the world was like before cell phones. Well, I happen to know what it was like, so I can share that story with you another time if you want. But it's similar into the digital device world, when we had devices that were not internet ready and accessible as they are today. When you look at the number of digital devices being connected, about a year ago we estimated there were about 1 billion digital devices connected to the internet. We're projecting by 2020 that there'll be more than 50 billion devices connected to the digital world. Now, when you think about the rapid growth of that, what does it say to us? It says the types of information and the types of uses that we're doing are spanning across many different devices that we're going to be using in everyday life. So some things are quite natural. Our PCs, our smartphones, our tablets, these are things we're used to every day. But then start extending that out. Some of the things you're starting to see already. IP-connected automobiles. You have Ford, you've got GM, you've got Mercedes, everyone with internet built into their cars nowadays. You think about embedded devices of satellites and satellite communications. And then you look at things like dishwashers and refrigerators and microwave ovens and go on down the list. Now, the purpose of IP-enabled devices, like a refrigerator, for example, is not to call Safeway and say, I'm out of milk, give me more milk. It's really about home energy management. And when you think about energy costs and how they're spiraling around the world, and here even in California and the US, you can understand the desire and the need for people to be able to be in control of their own home energy management systems. So the enabler of these devices to have a central controllable feature is really to put the power in your hands about what you're going to be spending on your energy usage in the home. But now think about the other side of that coin. If that device is not secure, which, by the way, how many of you are aware of wireless smart meters that PG&E has been installing around the, okay, so quite a few of you, good. You realize those have no security on them whatsoever? It is so, we have demonstrated this multiple times, it is so very easy for us to go in and hack one of those things and turn a $350 bill into a $350,000 credit that PG&E owes you. It's pretty amazing. The worst side of that is not only are you at risk for what's taking place, but the information that PG&E is gathering about that from you is also at risk. In fact, so much so that you probably may not have noticed, but the PUC has required PG&E to make those an option for you now. Okay? They cannot enforce it, at least until these devices become more secure. So when you look at the IP-connected world and the threats around that, you start thinking to yourself, every device that I have that is IP-enabled is a device that's subject to risk. And every risk that is there is a risk that comes to me against my information, my company's information, or the assets that I have around that, the device security itself. Another example, we have a conference every year, our customer conference called Focus. And we have about 3,000, 3,500 of our customers come from around the globe. And in the focus of last year, we actually demonstrated hacking into an insulin pump, okay, and altering the medication flow from the insulin pump and eventually killing the patient. Okay? Now, we didn't have a real patient hooked up to it, so we didn't really kill anybody, but we showed that that can be done. And this pump is made by a major manufacturer that you would recognize the name of. And the point of that being is there isn't a digital device that's out there right now that cannot be worried about security, and security built in, because the ability to hack into it after it ships is not that complex. The ability to hack into it when it's built from the start is very complex. So one of the things we work with manufacturers around the world to do is how do you develop a strategy around building security in from the start? When you take a look at the malware and the rapid growth of malware around the world, if you're at all in tune with the cybersecurity area of the industry, this isn't new news to you. The malware growth has been phenomenal. If you look at the rate of growth over the last several years, just in the last 2 years, we had more malware than we had in the prior 6 years. We'll have 120 million new malware discoveries just in the next couple of months. We have a technology at McAfee we call Global Threat Intelligence. What Global Threat Intelligence does is it monitors the traffic around our devices, more than 120 million devices around the world now, on traffic patterns and behaviors of malware going through the various forms of the internet. When we find something that we suspect is risky, we'll take a hash. We won't take data. We're not taking anyone's personal data. We'll take a hash of that file and feed it to the cloud. We are gathering 65 billion feeds a month through our cloud. And what we're doing there is building a reputational database that helps us scale and defend against the large level of malware increases that you see here. To defend against this, there is not a company or an organization of human beings that could keep up with the pace of malware growth. That's why you need to continue to invest in automation, in tools that look at not only what we call blacklisting, the known bad things, or whitelisting, the known good things, but also the reputational things, the patterns, the behaviors that give you the ability to look at and suspect whether something's good or not good. When you look at an area that we're all very familiar with, the mobile world, there's smartphones that we're all carrying around with us today. These things are really more like small computers on our hips or in our pockets. We have internet access, we have access to websites, we can do transactions. How many of you do electronic banking on your phones? Wow. How many of you know if your phone is safe or not? 1. 2, 3, 4. How many of you think your phone is safe? Good job. He's got McAfee on his, right. So he's safe, I hope. Well, the enablement of us to do things through the phones. And by the way, when you look at you as a generation of users, you are multiple screen users for sure. Your smartphone, your TVs, your tablets. You're a generation that is a multi-screen user. My generation seems to be a single screen user at a time in a sequential process. Somehow you've learned how to parallel process multiple screens. But giving you the power on these devices also gives the bad guys the power to get your device and to get your information. And when you look at the growth of malware on smartphones, it pales in comparison to the malware on PCs, but it is growing at a very rapid rate. And when you look at the threats today on these devices that we have, it's really more around your device protection, your data protection, and your app protection than it is about malware. The malware will come. I promise you it will. These are very attractive platforms for the bad guys to attack. They're very attractive platforms to get your information, your personal data out of that, to get take that personal data and use it to gain financial gain from either you or any of the information on your device. It will happen. But it's not here yet today. The bigger threat today is what happens to your data and what happens to your device and what happens to the apps that are on your device. There's more than 10,000 smartphones and tablets left in U.S. airports in the U.S. every week, okay? So when you think about the number of devices that are subject to open information just by the fact that they're lost or stolen inside of an airport every week, you can see the size of the problem and how fast it's growing. When you look at the ability to hack into these devices, it is not that complex. How many of you turn Bluetooth on your device? Okay, not too many. Bluetooth is not all that complex to hack into by any means. And in fact, if you take a look here, what I've been doing while I've been talking to you is actually hacking into your device and trying to get into what device you have on here. I can't get this open. Yeah, come on, there we go. Jessica, get that open for me, please. You have a password on that I don't know? Great, thanks. All right. Oh, boy. He just went back. There we go. Okay. So, Kyle, are you here in the room? Kyle's not going to admit that he's in the room. Let's see. Let me just pick another one here. Brianna. Oh, hi, Brianna. So I'm going to ask Jessica to pass this around. This is all of your IP addresses off your phone that are in this room that have enabled us to take a look at your information. You know, it is fascinating to watch, and I'll give you a couple clues to watch for behavioral techniques that the bad guys are using around airports and different things of that nature. They will get off a plane and they'll immediately pull out a tablet or a smartphone, or they'll open up their laptop or even in a cab line, and you'll just see them start typing in a bunch of numbers and then just watching screens. And what they're doing is pulling up all the IP addresses of the people that are around them. What are they trying to get? They're trying to get your name. They're trying to get your social security number. They're trying to get any bank information that you have on there. And looking at the group here, or hands that were raised about how many of you are doing online banking, you know, you'd be pretty easy pickings for these guys. And then what they're going to do is they're going to spoof those accounts, and then they're going to go in and try to get whatever sort of financial gain they can out of that. So when you think about this now, what do you think you are worth to a hacker that steals your identity? Because this is sold every day over the internet, by the way. Names, social security numbers, credit card numbers, everything else. How much do you think you're worth to one of these bad guys? Anyone want to guess? No? 25 cents. So think about that. They're going to get 25 cents per name, and then you're going to spend weeks trying to repair your credit history, get your information back, maybe restore your device, and think about all the hassle you're going to go through there. So if I'm not giving you a strong commercial about think about security, I'll keep going. Because it really is important. And this is a generation that is coming into a world that is even less secure than ever before. When you look at the current state of malware, there really is no area of the world anymore that is protected from the bad guys, or that the bad guys aren't talking. From a personal standpoint, we've talked about the smartphones and your information, things of that nature. From a business standpoint, cyber technology, cyber criminals now have gone from a defensive profile to an offensive profile. And the goal is really around how do I steal your IP and how do I get your business information to benefit my IP or my business, okay? I don't know if you heard of an attack a while ago called Aurora. Aurora was all about the hacking of roughly 115 companies around the world for the design purpose of stealing drilling as well as business information for the purpose of being able to know what the competition was doing ahead of time, as well as being able to bid at the level they knew that they were going to win. It was also about an attack on IP. All of the intellectual property that a software company like us has developed, potentially being hacked, or actually there were several companies, McAfee was not one of them. In fact, McAfee was the first company that protected against this. All the years you spent investing in IP, getting your patents, your copyrights, and everything else gone, right? And so when you look at business on business attack now, and even some of this is government on business sponsored attacks, you're looking at different types of threats. There isn't a week that goes by that you don't hear about some business, some government organization being hacked. When you look at government, you have government on government attacks. Now governments have gone to the offensive approach as well. You're reading about the ambient reports this week on China's hack of roughly 115 companies as well, and the intent of gathering the IP of different companies and even breaking into government infrastructures and defense systems. And then you look at critical infrastructure, and this is the one that I worry a lot about. Stuxnet. How many of you heard of Stuxnet? Good, okay. If you really want to read something really interesting, it doesn't take long. There's a short video out that you can see, but go read this one. It's like a spy novel. And really what Stuxnet was about was an attack on nuclear power plants, right? On the core infrastructure of a nuclear power plant. So think about that if you bring something like that down and what the impact of that is. You look at the attacks on critical infrastructure on oil and gas and even local power utilities and things of that nature. So there isn't an area of our world anymore that is free or can avoid the attacks. And really this is all because we have come to rely on computing so much in all of our lives. It has brought us so much benefit that we rely on it, and it is now a target that is accessible to the bad guys. So what does McAfee do? What do we do as a company? We're not just an antivirus company. What we are is a security company. And really what we are securing is global information. When you look at the benefits of the internet and you think about the value of the information that it's providing to us, it's making all of our lives easier every day. It's helping us to become more knowledgeable in our areas of expertise and or areas of interest. It's opening up new worlds to us that we would have never known before. What happens in a world when you don't trust that information anymore? What happens when you get to a website and you think you're buying or seeing information about a particular country or hotel or something of that nature that is accurate and you find out that it's not? Or it's a site that's there to really get a phishing attack and gain your personal information. When you stop relying on the internet to be a trusted source of information, it basically changes the foundation of education, personal and professional education as we know it. So at McAfee, one of our core causes is really protecting and securing global information. The next area that we focus on is how do we protect global commerce. When I started my days out at IBM, my last assignment was account exec on Wells Fargo Bank. And at that time, Wells Fargo Bank was doing millions of dollars a day in electronic funds transfer, shifting money around the world electronically. But these were point-to-point systems, closed, not capable of being hacked. Today, you have trillions of dollars being transferred around the world through internet-based systems that have various degrees of security built around them. Okay, from the very, very high end, very sophisticated, very difficult, to the very low end, hey, I see it going over the wire right now, and the man in the middle could grab it real easy. So the other thing that we look at is how do we take these types of transactions and make them more secure? And if we're unable to do that, if the world as a whole stops trusting electronic transfer of funds, think about the impact on the global economy. You'll stop going to Amazon. You won't be a Prime member anymore. You'll have businesses doing different types of transfers than internet transfers. The global economy, as we know it, will be negatively impacted. So we spend a lot of time and energy knowing how to protect this area as well. Families and children. This is a real important area for us, as you might guess. None of us at McAfee want any of our families, our children, or our grandchildren exposed to the predators of the internet, be they a child predator, a cyber bully, or whatever the case may be. So we spend a lot of time and a lot of money investing in technologies about how we protect families and children. And then the last area that we focus a lot on is an area called identity. Okay? Identity is really about being able to know that you are who you are. When you are using your computer, your smartphone, or whatever it is, that you're doing what you want to be doing and that you're giving away information that you want to be giving away. Nothing more, nothing less, only what you want to give. This is a very new emerging area of security, and we're utilizing a lot of new advanced technologies, biometrics, as well as behavior-based technologies to help secure people's identity over the internet. These are the four primary areas that we focus on in our business, and what we're trying to solve is the security problems. In doing this, we're bringing together and to the market some very innovative technologies that help us accomplish the goal. I talked earlier about device and data and app protection. One of the applications that we have available for you on smartphones is an application we call App Alert. App Alert is all about letting you know what those applications on your device are doing. Okay? How many of you heard the stories about Apple and Google tracking you through your smartphone? No? I would have thought there would be more hands. That made the press quite a bit. There's about 8% of all the apps that are available through the app stores that are designed specifically with malware embedded in them to gather information off your device. Okay? So one of the things we do with App Alert is we inspect the apps on your device and we let you know what's happening with that app. Is it sending information? If it is, where is it sending information? And then giving you control to be able to allow that to happen or not happen. When you look at the other end of the spectrum, the enterprise, and what the world is changing in today is what we call consumerization of IT. And consumerization of IT means you use the same device personally as you use professionally. And the best example that we have of that today is your smartphone. Today we'll go in as a consumer, we'll buy our smartphone, but then we'll take that to work and we'll say we want access to information. So having technologies that span the consumer to the enterprise is part of being a total security company. We call it the enterprise of one to the enterprise of thousands. On the other end of the spectrum, we have very advanced technologies called DeepSafe. DeepSafe is a revolutionary new technology that is a platform that allows us to sit below the operating system. Prior to DeepSafe, all security companies sat at the OS level. That means the bad guys could see everything that we were doing and we could see everything they were doing, and then it was a race of who was better. With DeepSafe, we actually get below the OS and we can look up and see what the bad guys are doing before they do it. Every piece of malware, Every identity attack requires some interaction with the hardware. We can monitor that hardware below what the OS guys are doing, or what the bad guys are doing at the OS level, and provide better protection. This gives us really a new generation of technologies to help better secure the things that we've talked about. So, let me come back. It's really an exciting time to be in the security industry. The security industry as a whole is an $82 billion market. Okay? It's also a very fragmented market. McAfee is the largest dedicated security company there is in the industry, and we have less than 10% market share. That tells you how fragmented this industry is. But it's consolidating. And it's consolidating because customers need a solution, and a whole solution, not just point products, from a company that they can trust. Next week, we will be celebrating the 2-year anniversary of Intel's acquisition of McAfee. And the reason Intel had purchased McAfee was because they know, and we know, that being a software-only security company will not solve all the problems we've talked about. You need to bring together hardware and software to drive those solutions. And the next generation of security technologies are really going to be both hardware and software-based. And to do that, Intel knew that they needed a leading-edge company to help drive this solution together in the marketplace. We're really excited about what this brings to us because it gives us the ability to design security from within, right from the start, and to leverage technologies and experiences both companies have. If you at all are interested in technology, if you have at all an interest in forensics, if you like mystery novels, if you like spy novels, then security is an area you ought to think about. This is a very, very fast-paced industry. It moves quickly. What happens today is obsolete, and what you're trying to do is anticipate what happens tomorrow. And yet you spend a tremendous amount of time doing forensics on what did take place. It's a very, very exciting industry, and it's a very big industry. Lots of opportunity for growth, lots of opportunity to make a difference in the world. So, I hope that in the time that I spent with you today, I've given you an interest to look into security. But also let me tell you why I'm excited about polygrads. It's not only because I am one, but it's what you do. You know, you hear all the time, and I was brainwashed with this while I was here. Learn by doing, right? That's our philosophy. That's why we're better. Well, you know what? It's true. It really is true. We have side-by-side comparisons every year when we bring in new people to the company of a learn-by-doing student versus a non-learn-by-doing student. And guess which one is more prepared to start contributing to the business day one? It really is. You know, you also bring a work ethic that you don't realize that you have. And I can remember when I first started, I didn't understand why I was working the way I was working, but it's a culture that gets developed here. It's a culture that you learn from your peers. It's a culture you're learning from your professors without them telling you. They're talking to you about what the real world is like and what you need to do to succeed in it. And you know, it's really not all that complex. It really comes down to a couple simple things. It is learn what you're doing, practice what you're doing, and work at what you're doing. And you bring together a nice combination of learn by doing and strong work ethic. And I can trust you, I can promise you, that separates you from the other folks that are looking at. We have with us here today, I have with me here today, folks that I want you to meet. Excuse me. First, let me introduce you to Electra. Electra, please stand up. Okay. Electra graduated last year. She was part of our intern program, became full-time with us this year, and is already making a huge difference in our business. We have Jessica Kramer back here. Jessica finished in 2008, and I'll tell you guys an interesting story, maybe offline, about Jessica. I really had a kick the last time we were doing recruiting, and someone commenting about, wow, you're that old? But Jessica has been with us a couple of years now, and we're just thrilled to have her, of course. And then I want you to meet two of our team members here from our recruiting organization that I hope, if you're interested, you will visit after this presentation and learn more about our intern program and investigate McAfee as a potential career opportunity for you. First, excuse me. Oh, before I do that, Kate, where's Kate? I'm sorry, I forgot Kate. Kate came out of the computer science department. She first made a mistake and went to Intuit, then got wise and came to McAfee. And then from our recruiting group, we have Burley. Where's Burley? Right here. Please stand up. Oh, she is. All right. Give him a bad time, Rex. And Rex right here. So let's open it up for any questions that you might have right now. I think we have a few minutes left. Yes. That was really the first one that I told you about. Business 101, day 1, week 1, Owen Servatius, the value of dishwashing soap. That has been with me my entire life, as you can tell. And I bet I have told that story to, if not 3,000 people by now. Yes. Yeah. So the question is, why the big jump in mobile malware? Well, really it comes down because of platforms. Excuse me. In the mobile world, in the early days, by the way, McAfee's been in the mobile malware business since 2002. We started on a joint project with NTT Docomo in Japan when they had a 511 dialer attack, which was 511 in Japan is equivalent to our 911 here in the U.S. And so they had a dialer attack that brought down their emergency network. But what is changed over that period of time was two major things. One, at that point, there were many different operating systems for mobile devices, and many of them proprietary and each of them unique. Therefore, the ability of the bad guys to write once and attack many was very limited. So it was too much work. It was easier to do it on PCs. Over the years, what's evolved is, one, access to the internet. The iPhone was the first device that broke the hold that the operators had on us about where we can go get information. Prior to the iPhone, we were all attached to their network. With the iPhone and Wi-Fi enablement, we now could get to the internet through any Wi-Fi access. So now you have a vehicle to get beyond a controlled network, which also opens up the exposure. The final element, which you saw happening last year, or actually for the past 18 months, but the real impact over the last 12 probably, is the standardization of operating systems, iPhone and Android. Android now outshipping iPhone 3 to 1. With the standardization of an operating system comes a much easier attack vector for the bad guys. I can write once, attack many. That's why you're seeing the growth the way you are. Yes, sir. So I'll repeat the question. You tell me if I have it right. In the face of the new cyber attacks, how is McAfee going to keep pace with those attacks that are coming in and with attacks from various government-on-government attacks and so forth, right? Okay. Well, as I mentioned to you, the growth is you're incapable of keeping up that growth with human capacity. You have to use technology. McAfee invested 7 years ago in what I call global threat intelligence. We first called that Artemis. And the idea of Artemis was to bring together the black, the white, and the gray. And out of that, build intelligence about how to detect good or bad things in sub-second response time. Today, when we get a feed from any one of our devices that we suspect is not good, we can issue a block command in sub-second response time to all those devices around the world at such a fast rate that there would be no consumer, there would be no business that would even know what we're doing. we can analyze that attack in seconds or minutes automatically. If for whatever reason it goes through that process and it can't be fixed through automation, we will put manual effort behind it. That'll take longer. But then what we'll do is issue a block command for all other devices until we have a fix for it and then get that out. That's one approach. Behavior-based and biometric-based technology is the other area. When you look at today the passwords that we have and the many passwords that we have, that is a point of inflection that is very common for attacks. So our goal in using biometric technology and behavior-based technology is to eliminate passwords. By eliminating passwords, we believe we reduce the threat vector substantially. And using these technologies, we believe we can, over time, ensure that whatever point you're communicating to is assuring that you are who you are, you're on the device who you say you're on, and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Now, for that to work, McAfee and Intel have to become identity brokers. And we believe that we're of the scale of an organization to do that effectively. We also believe that our customers expect that of us, so that's a very natural path for us to head down. Yes? Well, you used the word litigate. That made me nervous. I hope you meant mitigate. But no, there's a lot of various tools that we utilize. So if our customers experience an attack, then we have a lot of different tools to deploy. And all the way up to sending a professional services team on site and help them remediate the situation. You know, a good number of attacks actually come from within an organization. They're not from external. So if you're inside the firewall and you're destined and wanting to initiate an attack inside of the company, you can do it. In those situations, most of those we can remedy over the internet. There are rare examples, and we had one just in the fourth quarter last year where we actually had to send a team in and help them remediate that way. We also, as part of our business, are used for advanced forensics. Secure companies or companies that require high levels of security will ask us to come in and run an audit on the defenses that they have in place. And we have some pretty scary guys that know what to do so that they can point those out and help them lock them down before bad things happen.
So you mentioned Intel acquisition McAfee. So does that mean that maybe one day I might see McAfee Wi-Fi router like that?
Well, yeah, you could. The question was, because of Intel, are you going to see some hardware-based devices with McAfee built in? Yeah, in fact, there's already many devices that have McAfee technology built into them now. Many of the ATMs that you go to have McAfee technology built into it. Some of the wireless modems are utilizing some of the embedded technologies that we have looking that way. And then we look at some of the smartphones. So embedded security is an area of our business that we work on as well. Now, more of the innovation around that is not how do you block something that's already there, how do you prevent something from ever getting started? And that's where the innovation is coming on the hardware, software from McAfee and Intel. Yes?
When it comes to saying that, I remember earlier you said that you guys are actually working on a level of security that's under the OS. That would probably be physical, actual, like changing circuits of hardware. And also, I assume because you want to get under the problem area where most malware and viruses and stuff like that come from, have you guys been talking with major OS makers, like for example Google and Microsoft and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Possibly integrating in security on OS now as well.
Yeah. So There were two questions really there. One was, when you're trying to operate below the OS, the technology that we're residing off there is an extension of the processor, okay? So we're not utilizing the BIOS, we're using the processor extension to activate ourselves and to look for things before the OS boots or right after the OS boots, okay? And that value, of course, comes from Intel, because it's the Intel processor that sits there. Now, by the way, as a security company, we cannot be only Intel-based. What we will do, no doubt, is become better on Intel than we will on anyone else because of the joint knowledge that the companies have. But we support AMD and other devices as well. The answer to your second question about to the OS manufacturers. So when you look at the Windows world, it's pretty hard to go back in time. There's millions of lines of code in that OS. So for them to harden that is an ongoing process, and we do work with them. We share information. We help do fixes. Every patch Monday they have, patch Tuesday they have come out. We help with vulnerabilities and so forth. When you look at Apple and Google and Linux and other, it's really a matter of penetration. Now, all of them are trying to build security from within, which is a good thing, right? But when you look at Android, that's kind of like Windows all over again. It's a wide open technology. So closing that barn door is going to be a little harder. When you look at Microsoft with Metro, they're trying to do a closed operating system. And if you look at Apple, it's trying to do a closed operating system. The problem with closed operating systems is invariably it limits your freedom. And when your freedom is limited, you find a way around it. More than half of the iPhones that exist are jailbroken already. And they're jailbroken with every update. Why? Because you don't want to live in an Apple-only world. So from a security company standpoint, we have longevity in what we do. We also have a mission to help try to protect that. Yes, sir. We have time for one more, I think. Yeah, good question. Question really was, a lot of pen testers is the example you used, but development professionals, software professionals, engineers and so forth really don't like anti-malware software because it has a negative impact on the performance of systems. What we and many companies in our industry are always trying to do is minimize the latency and the impact that it has. Part of that is driving more and more to the cloud, using the intelligence of the cloud to use that better to remediate and protect than relying on everything being on the device itself. By taking more to the cloud, you take less on the device, you put less on the device, less of a negative impact to the device, and hopefully greater enhanced security, which is when you look at McAfee, we are the only security company that monitors both the endpoint, network, and management parts of security. We believe that that is a distinct advantage in helping us accomplish that because we're seeing all vectors of attack. Other companies that compete against us are either or, not both. For example, Symantec's an endpoint, Cisco's a network, McAfee's endpoint network and management. So taking that and using the advanced technology that we have in conjunction with what we're trying to do with Intel, we think is going to really help that. And then in terms of metrics, it's really helping the industry understand what metrics should be measured today. The Mark's test of malware is out of date, right? Yet too many people are looking at that and saying, that's the definition of effectiveness, and it's really not. Okay? Well, listen, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you being here.